Alright, we're back at it again. I've got all the wax laid down carefully in all these contours. And when I was laying the wax in there, I noticed we got some wrinkles in it. And that's an indication that we may have some wrinkles when the copper gets pressed. And hopefully they won't be too bad and I can work them out. But we did get a little wrinkling in there. And I had to make sure I got this flange tucked in there real tight all the way around, and I think I got that pretty good. Now here is our top piece. I got this cleaned up and the material is going to flow in here. I've got a 3/4 lip here, plus the material is going to flow down and there'll be like a tongue on that which will match this. That's why we pour everything in the jig, you know, it's lined up and stuff, so it makes a perfect mold. This is where I'm going to fill from. This is a little vent, and like I said, these are little grabbers so that the material flows around there and grabs onto that. So I'm going to get the top on the bottom, and then I will show you the mix and how it gets mixed and poured. So let me get set up and we'll keep moving on. Okay guys, this is the product I'm using. It's made by a company called Smooth On. This is epoxy cast 655, and today I'm using the 102 hardener, and this is the first time I'm using it from this company. Normally, here's the wax, and that comes from Freeman Supply. I normally use Freeman Supply for all my casting stuff, but I got the wax from them because I like their wax. It's really precise. But I'm trying this company here, Smooth On. You can find them on the internet. They've got a lot of good products. I was real pleased with the technical specs on their epoxy cast 655. That's why I'm using it this time. I'm giving it a shot. So you can check that out on the web. I'm not associated with Freeman or Smooth On in any way, just so you know. But there's only so many places you could get casting resin, so you got to find it where you can. So we're ready now to pour down that hole, and you can see we've got wax sticking out. We don't want material flowing out of here or anything, so that makes a nice seal on there. And this guy's ready to go, so we can get 2 of these poured in one time. So it's critical when you mix this stuff. It's a 100 to 11 mix by weight with this medium hardener. So you need a gram scale to mix it properly, and you have to use it while it's warm. As you can see the sticker there. Use at 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 23 degrees Celsius. So make sure you're up at temperature. Like I say, this is warm. It's been sitting by the wood stove for a while. Once it's poured, I will turn on that heater. I will blast it with some heat and get it curing. So we're going to mix up a whole container. It's a 12-pound container, so we're going to mix up a whole container at once because we've got a big pour to do. But it's very critical it's mixed properly. And like I say, use a digital gram scale and make sure you get your mixture right, and really take the time and stir it properly before and after you mix. Add the hardener. Mix the epoxy cast first. Put the hardener in, mix it real good, and when you think you have it mixed enough, mix it again. And it does not need to be put in a vacuum or anything. It flows out real nice. You shouldn't get any air bubbles or anything like that. You could put it in a vacuum chamber if you need to, but I've never had a problem with it. So let's get on with it. I will I'll get everything mixed, and I'll show you the consistency when it's mixed and how it pours. Okay, hang in there. I'll be right back with you. Okay, I just put the hardener in there. It's going to look kind of watery and wet on top when you put the hardener in, but just keep mixing it. You could use a mixer in a drill. You could use a paint stick like this. It's not so thick where you can't mix it. I don't like to mix it with the power unit there. It seems to go everywhere, and you really got to clean that thing quick so it doesn't get all gunked up. Just take your time. With the 102 hardener, I've got plenty of time to work with it. I got plenty of open time. Make sure you match your hardener to the temperatures you're working in and how fast you want it to set up. I like a little bit of working time with it, so I use the 102. But if you check out their website, there's plenty of plenty of technical information and plenty of options there, and it's easy to pick what you need from the website. So I'm going to mix this probably for about 5 minutes. Make sure everything is looking good, and that's about the consistency. It flows real nice. You don't have to worry about it not filling up areas. It flows everywhere. And like I say, it's not necessary to put this in a vacuum. You won't get any air bubbles if you're careful with it and you pour it, gently. Don't just try and force everything in there at once. Just let it flow. Pour it a little bit at a time, and it'll seek its own level, and you'll have a nice mold when you're done. So I'll mix this up, and I'll be back with you when it's time to pour. Okay, I'm going to pour this one first, and then right before I put it in, we'll put some mold release on this. I'm going to pour it, give it a few minutes, let it start to set up a little bit, and then I'll put the part in there. Okay, and you can see it just pours very nice, gets everywhere. And we'll pour it a little low. I'll let that set up a little bit and then see. We'll try and bring it up flush once our piece goes in there. So I'll set the piece up with some mold release and start testing it in there and see how it fits. And you can see, I hope, from the camera how it levels out perfectly. There's no air pockets in there, no nothing, and that's what it looks like. So pours very easy, easy to work with. Don't be afraid of it. And I'll keep moving on, and I'll show you what it looks like as as the piece goes in, and as I pour that top one. Okay, there's a shot of the part with the fluid film on it. That's what I use for the mold release, and I just brush it on with a brush like that. I give it a couple coats, put that coat on, wait a few minutes, I'll put another coat on, and then we'll set that in the mix. Okay, I hope you can see that okay. There's our piece down in the mix there. Got a couple screws in it, and I've got it tied off to that post right there, because it does float around, and you don't want it to move. So I have it in position where I want it. I have all the defroster duct below the surface. It comes up high over here, but it's below the surface there, right in that area down there, and on that corner right there. All that is below the surface, and that's what we want. We want to push down into that. So that one's set. I'm going to try not to make too much fuss here on the bench, and I'm going to pour this next one. That's going to go through that hole, and I'll turn the heat on, and I'll get out of here so I don't make any motions on the bench here, or bang the bench around and get this out of level or out of whack or jiggling around. I want to let everything just set real nice overnight. So I'll get this second one poured, and we'll get out of here. So this is the one I'm going to work on now. I've got a little bit left of the first mix. Let's see how far that gets me, and then if I need to, I'll mix another half a bucket or so. And we will fill this one until we see it come out of our vent hole, which is on the other side. That way we know we're up at the top. And you can't see it in there, but there's a vent hole in there. So I'm going to pour this one until it comes out the vent hole, and that will fill up the whole cavity. And like I say, we'll let it set, and tomorrow we'll crack everything open and see what our dyes look like. Okay, that was our vent hole. I poured it until it came out of the vent hole and ran on the top of the form. You can't see down there, but it's right up to the bottom of our fill hole. And I had a couple blowouts, and you got to expect that when you're pouring steel on steel there. You got to get ready and be ready to plug them up. That's just some modeling clay that I use quite a bit. And right at some of the weld joints there, it started running out. And you don't want it to run out, because that will make your die short, and you don't want that. So plug those up real good. And I've got a weight on this one to keep it down a little bit. It was kind of floating a little bit more than I wanted it to. It's still in the right position, so I feel good about that. The top one is now poured. You can see some of that stuff that ran out of the vent hole, and that will lock it in real good. I've got those little welded bars there. I've got it up over the vent hole, so that can never fall out, or if it gets banged around, it won't get loose in there. So we've got one more to pour, which is going to be that one. And tomorrow I will chip this out of here, blend it in, wax it up, and do the same process that I just did today. And then we'll let them harden. And we'll take them over to the press and put some copper in there and see how they press out. So it's going to be a learning experience on these. There's a lot of metal that needs to be moved. I'm not exactly sure how bad it's going to wrinkle up, but we will press some copper soon, and I'll take you along and show you how it goes. Okay, here we are back on the form again, and I separated them this morning, and you can see I still got to peel all this wax out of here. It's going to take some cleaning up. We've got a little bit of material that flowed down in there, which we need to carefully sand out of there. We got a little leak right there, so we got some extra material here. We'll just blend that all down. And here is the other side. And again, they look kind of messy when they come out. This is all wax. You can see all this stuff here. This all has to come off. So, you got to spend some time cleaning up your mold when it's done. It could be a pain, but without that wax, you'd never get them apart. So, just with a little scraper, you can scrape all that off. You see we've got some ridges here. We'll just blend these down with a sander. This stuff sands and grinds real nice. It's not a problem. You could make adjustments. You could do whatever you need to do with your second side here. So get it cleaned up, smooth everything out with a sander. Some 80 grit works nice. Little belt sanders work nice. Basically anything. It'll grind real nice. And like I say, you got to spend some time pulling the wax off. So a little bit of a nuisance, but much easier than making this out of steel or something, if you had to make this die out of steel, it would be very costly. It would take a lot of machining time, and wouldn't work out real good cost-wise. So this is a good way to do it, and you know, if you're careful with your dies and you don't slam around and stuff, you can get thousands of parts out of them before this resin wears out, and you could just re-pour it again. So I'm going to clean this one up, and then I'm going to fish that one out of there. There's going to be a lot of chipping and pulling that modeling clay out of there, and see if we can extract our defroster duct. And then that one will have to be blended in, and it's just a process. You just got to follow the steps. They're not hard, but they're tedious. So this is a part, and I'll keep moving on this, get it cleaned up, and get the second one poured today. Once that's cleaned up, I'll get that second one poured, and that's it. After that, we're ready to get everything blended and make a couple of presses and see what we wind up with. So hang in there with me. I will show you the process as it happens. Okay, I am working on this second die and trying to extract our original piece. I think if I move some of this modeling clay, there is our original piece of defroster duct in there. So I'm going to get all the modeling clay out and just carefully pick at it, try not to ruin our original piece. And then I'll relieve these edges a little bit, and we'll try and extract that. But I did clean up the first set of dies, and we'll go for a little walk over to the press. I did clean them up, and I wanted a quick just try a piece, and I learned a couple things. Here are the dies, and because they're so heavy, I have to load them sideways and then flip them and put them in the press. So that's not working out real good. I'm going to have to get a die cart, some kind of hydraulic table that I could set these up on the bench, put them on the cart, wheel it over here, and try and load them in there. But I got them cleaned up, nothing special. And then I had a piece of soft copper I stuck in there, and just to make a test piece. It was a little too short, but I just wanted to see what the edges were going to do, how bad they were going to wrinkle. So let's head back over to okay, here we are at the bench again. And let me see if I can zero in on that. That is the piece. And remember, this is just soft copper, so you're going to see every little mark in it. But there it is. A little short over here, but still needs to be trimmed. Here's the other piece. Here's our original piece. I'll lay that right on there. You see it still needs to be trimmed a little bit. But I think you can see we're gaining on it. There's a little bit of wrinkling right in here and right in here. I think I can work it out by hand. I haven't tried to do anything with it yet. I just wanted to see how it was going to press. I think if I was using quarter hard or half hard, it might be better. And these are kind of like a press die. So if we were gonna press this, or if we were going to stamp this, and we went to a stamping company, we said, hey, make these parts for us. When they made their die, the top one wouldn't just come down and squeeze down on it. There'd be a two-stage process where you'd have your sheet on here, then you'd have a die that came down and completely captured and squeezed the sheet very tightly to the bottom die. That way when the top die comes down, it's actually stretching the metal and it's flowing the metal into the bottom die. So what I don't have with these dies is that pressure die. I have no way to hold the sheet firmly to the bottom die and then push it and stretch it in there. And I think if I was stretching it in there, I'd have less wrinkling. But it's not a big deal. Like I say, I think I can work this stuff out by hand. It's hard to see. But and like I say, this is soft copper. I might try some, like I say, some quarter hard stuff and see where that gets me. But I'm pretty happy with the results so far. That's going to make a nice defroster duct. And I'll fine tune everything and get the die sanded up a little better. But I just wanted to try a piece in there. I had a short piece, so I just stuck it in there and put the squeeze on it, and that's what happened. And then around this edge here, I'm going to rivet that and solder it. Not that you'll ever see it, but that's just how I'm going to do it. And like I say, it was short. There's not enough material right here. But the hose is going to go on there, so that doesn't matter either. But I'm gaining on it. I'm just chipping away at it. I'm happy with the preliminary results. And a little fine tuning, and I'm sure it's going to work out real nice. So I'm going to get cleaning up this die, get that extracted, and then just like the first one, I will wax it and pour this one. But I'll show you some progress along the way.